We're going to move on to Lester now, who's going to talk about how we apply this in our particular context.
I think one of the things that we really need to do well now is we really need to realize how, like Dr. Deane was saying, there's so many ideas that actually pervade our society right now. And we need to know what those ideas are to be able to respond to them properly. And the thing that we also have to see is that the gospel, so this primary idea that we believe in, when we fully apprehend it, it actually is transformative, right? So like he's been saying, the Holy Spirit fills us and it changes us. But that also means that the gospel needs to shape what it means for us to be doctors, okay? So there's kind of two. The first thing I think it's important just to draw attention to is what our secular culture thinks. So a little bit kind of piggybacking on what Dr. Deane was saying, and then what that practically means for us. So first, though, if we really believe that Jesus has died for us, then we believe a whole host of other things, including where disease comes from, includes why we're in the job that we're in, includes kind of our entire worldview, right? So everything needs to be shaped by that. We don't tend to think about it. Like when we think about our practical problems, like, oh, like I'm really strong, like, I really want to match into this program, or, I've been bickering with my friend. A lot of the times we don't realize how our worldview actually impacts that. But if you look at the very structure of the way medicine works, okay, if you're in your first year of medical school, I guess you've been in first year for a little bit now. So most of you will have learned the basic approach that we have to disease, right? You learn about what your healthy state is. You learn about where diseases come from. So what's their etiology, what's their pathophysiology, and then you start going into management and then what the prognosis looks like. The reason that you approach medicine that way is because that's the way God has actually structured the world, okay? God created the world good, and then there was a fall. There was a disease. And we talk about diagnosis. How do I detect that? What is that? And then you begin to talk about management. How do I cure the disease? That's actually what God comes and he does in our world. He redeems our world. Jesus is the cure to this disease of sin. And then we talk about prognosis. What happens after the cure? We talk about consummation and life in heaven. That's just to give you one quick example of how our worldview actually makes sense of everything, right? It's not just like, oh, Jesus saves me, now I'm this good Christian and I go live my life. No, it's actually embedded in the very way that medicine works. And so that's how we think. That's important for us to realize. Like that's where we're coming from. But where's our world coming from? So I'd actually even expand on what Dr. Deane was saying. So there's two main streams of ideas that function in our society, and they're important because these are the things that the people around you believe. The first is the one that he was touching on, was this kind of scientific rationalistic idea that, evidence-based medicine, so on. People, if something's not measurable, they kind of treat it like it's quackery. But the other thing that we've also developed is a kind of reaction to that. And this is the reaction that you see in the way I think a lot of young people, a lot of people in medicine think about today. It's you need to follow your feelings, right? Scientific rationalism is kind of like your feelings don't matter. Show me what the evidence is. But we also live in the wake of existentialism, this idea that what's most important in the world is the fact that you exist. There's no God out there. The world is chaotic. And so you need to exert yourself to make sense of the world. The structure in the world comes from your own mind. That's why your feelings become so important. That's why your identity is so important. That's why transgenderism makes sense, because how you feel is what reality is. It's not actually dictated by what you can measure and what you can see. So you see that in medicine, we're actually caught between these two worlds because we talk about evidence-based medicine, but at the same time, most of the people in medical school are still very feelings-oriented as opposed to what does purely the evidence say. The reason we need to know that is because for us to really practice medicine well and to love our neighbors well, we have to learn to think like that. One of the difficult things I think that a lot of us face, especially if you've grown up in the church, is that, being a Christian is about kind of following the rules properly. You don't swear, you don't drink alcohol. If you do, maybe you just have a little bit, you're kind of this well-behaved sort of person. But we are living in a storm. I'm not even talking about just COVID, all right? I'm talking about this overall storm. So we have to begin to connect with our culture in a way that enters the mind of our culture and says, why do you think that abortion makes sense? Why do you think that euthanasia makes sense? And we have to come at it at a way that's not coming in, planting our flag saying, I'm against abortion because it's wrong in the eyes of God. But people don't care about that. But people are really inclined to follow their feelings. And so how do I appeal to their feelings? How do I make sense of why they think something is right, as opposed to kind of fighting with them on the surface level? That's, I think, the most important thing that we need to do as we're going into our workplaces now, is learning this art of subversion, okay? Learning this art of understanding where people are really coming from in their hearts, and how they want this because they think it'll give them control over their lives. Well, why do they need to have control over their lives? It's because they don't believe in a sovereign good God who's controlling everything, okay? The fact that we do a lot of our, and this depends on the kind of context, but especially for us in medical school, working with the people that we're working with, we need to learn to come in through the back door so that people aren't necessarily all like tensed up already when we're addressing these issues. But we're learning to help them see things, or we're learning to engage with them where they care, where they will listen to us, because those are the things that they want to talk about. And then being able to show from that worldview how things either don't pan out the way that they should, okay, so they pan out in a negative way, like with racism, but also how they can actually redirect them towards a different kind of position. So the big thing is really, we for us to be practical, we need to learn to go into the minds of the people we're engaging with and to kind of navigate from within that space, instead of just coming out from the outside saying, this is what we believe.